Mate, I don't know what, it's like people talk about imposter syndrome or whatever it is. I don't really know what I've brought to the table that's brought success other than just being passionate, putting in the hard work, persevering when it was tough, doing the right thing, has returned 10x what you ever think. So there's a return on investment of just being a good person and doing the right thing that you don't know until it shows its face, you know what I mean? Building good relationships.
Welcome to the Founder Podcast. I'm joined today by my co-host Justin Hodges and Ben Maher. And today's special guest, we got Brent Thompson, founder and director of the Sierra Group. Mate, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, boys.
Absolutely, mate. Now, tell us briefly about Sierra Group. When did it start? What do you guys do?
Yep, so Sierra Group's a residential property development company. Been going for 10 years. And we really started in infill, I guess the terminology, infill townhouses and apartment projects. So what you would see, within 10 kilometres of the city in the suburbs that we probably live in, building, 2 and 3 story projects. And that sort of evolved over the last 10 years to delivering some larger projects. And part of a longer 20-year journey to where we are today.
So what was your background personally before you started the Sierra Group?
So I'll probably, if I go back to the beginning, is my old man was a builder and builder developer, as you know, Magnus, and never wanted me to work in that industry, become a trade or become a builder. But living in a household where property was everything, I guess naturally I was drawn to property. So mum and dad sent me to a good school to get a good education. Did my work experience in year 12 with a company called FKP, who are a listed public property development company. And so that really set me on the path of wanting to become a property developer rather than a builder. So left school, went to university to do property economics, and a mate of mine had lost his licence for drink driving, and he was brickies labouring, so he asked me to come and pick him up and take him out to Ipswich so we could brickies labour together. And so then ended up doing that while trying to juggle uni, and just decided that it was probably better for me to look at a different pathway to development. And so ended up doing a carpentry apprenticeship, bought a house at 21, renovated that, and so worked my way through from that pathway into development. So always been the goal, and just sort of changed the direction along the way.
So how old were you when you did your first development?
I bought the site when I was 26. It was supposed to be 4 townhouses, and then got the neighbouring property, so it ended up being 10, and then delivered that in 2015 when I was 27.
Yeah. So probably just worth noting that, like you said, I do know a little bit because I used to work for your old man back 35 odd years ago when your dad was building. So
when you were 15.
Yeah,
16.
Yeah, quite young, just finishing my apprenticeship, and worked for your old man for a few years.
Yeah, and probably the other point to it is that doing that carpentry apprenticeship, I did my builder's license as well. So I became, certificate 4 in construction, and then advanced diploma of construction to get my open builder's license. So when I started that first project, the original intention had been to get the builder that I was working for to build it. So I'd worked my way up into construction management, and I wanted them to build the project. I would supervise it. I ran carpentry gangs, so my carpenters would build the project while I oversaw it. And sort of, might touch on it, but I got let down by the guy that I was working for, and so I ultimately ended up building it myself. And so, even though I didn't, my parents didn't want me to go down that pathway, ultimately we've ended up building all of our projects, and so development comes first, but building obviously services that.
I think for me, so what's your motivation every morning? Is it to be the best property developer? Is it having heaps of places to do it? Or what's every morning look like for you? Why do you get out of bed? What motivates you to do what you do?
Yeah, and that question is really difficult to answer sometimes. I often ask myself that, and what is the motivation? Because I am so passionate about achieving what are really my dreams, but is it what is the motivation? Is it financial? Is it the challenge? And I probably don't fully understand, other than I've always just wanted to achieve the best that I can. Like if I sort of put it into a bit of a story, it's like, how far can I plant my flag, in my lifetime of taking on challenges and overcoming them and growing something. And so probably that's inside me, and whether it came out through property development or a different business venture or whatever it might be, it's just that personal satisfaction of overcoming challenges and achieving something. It's probably the reason.
So when you were looking to grow your business and you were looking to sort of like expand and create opportunities and all of that, how did you define that opportunity, number one? And number two, like, how did you figure out that was the right opportunity to take?
Yeah, I think probably because it was second nature, because it was in the family, property and building. So I think a little bit I was probably lent that way. If I'd grown up in a family that were share traders or, investment banking or something different, maybe I would have naturally gravitated towards that. Obviously, when you're reasonably driven and, you want success, and I guess the things that come with that, something like property development, which, it's not just about money, but there is the allure that if you do it well, you can create some success, which opens opportunities for yourself and your family and things like that. So that probably, part of being family, part of that, there's a good reward if you do it well. And then the other thing is, just throws up so many challenges, because in property development, it's not just about understanding construction. Like, the life cycle of development exposes you to town planning, finance, legals, construction, sales and marketing. So such a broad spectrum that I think also, along the journey, I've probably found things within the development cycle that maybe tick the boxes for me as well.
What's some of the biggest challenges as a property developer that you face? I know we had COVID in 2019 and the back end of that, and that period would have been very, very rough for you. So how did you get yourself out of that? And what type of people did you surround yourself with?
Yeah. Because like all businesses, we probably all think the business we're in is the hardest one, but I feel that with development, there are a lot of things that you can't control. From initial trying land acquisition, you can't guarantee someone's going to sell you the block of land that you want or the block of land that's going to work. So if I talk about the challenges, they sort of rear their head at different times. Like you said, with COVID, obviously things like supply chain disruption, construction costs, which has continued to flow on till now in 2024. There's been different periods through the cycle where I've had different challenges. So 2015 delivered the first development. Sales were amazing. That project was probably one of the easiest ones that I've ever done. The level of detail in the plans and town planning was so much less than what we do today. The construction environment was what I would call, reasonably easy and stable. But then we moved into 2016 and there was a apartment oversupply in Brisbane. So many apartments had been delivered in those early teens through to 2016 that the market wouldn't absorb them. So I had a project where, we'd finished it. We still had a lot of apartments still to sell, and we had to grind for 12 months to try and get those sales. Then, 2017, 18 was a finance crunch. So developers struggled to get funding for projects. So banks really pulled out of the market because of that oversupply. Then we had APRA intervene on the retail end, so people weren't able to buy the properties because they couldn't get the loans. So we've just seen challenges at every stage, but they've come from different angles. So it's really been about, how do we manage what's thrown at us? And as you said, what people can you lean on? So it's probably been different people throughout the whole journey, depending on what challenges we've had and what skill sets would help out to manage those. And sometimes I feel bad because, at times I might have been closer to somebody who, if we talk about mentors, like somebody who was able to provide advice, who was experienced to help navigate certain issues. And then as time moves through, you sort of find yourself leaning on somebody else. So hopefully that answers it.
What have you got under construction at the moment?
So we've got two projects in construction on the Gold Coast. One's 113 apartments on Chevron Island, which is, 2 and 3 bedroom apartments, really tailored for owner-occupier downsizer market. So that's in the basement at the moment. We've just finished basement 3 and about to come back to ground. And then we've got 19 apartments in Balinga, which is down sort of Chug and Kira area. And that's on beach, so rather high end. And that's just topped out. So the last of the concrete slabs has been poured.
Yeah, as Benny touched on, like identifying opportunities, because I know that when you secured both of those sites, that was before the market really exploded and that real demand was happening down the Gold Coast. Just talk us through, because I know you did a fair bit of market research and it wasn't just luck. And a lot of property developers, I think, they go out there and they just pick up a site. The market has a big shift and they're super successful. But you've obviously done a lot more of that hard work. So just talk us through some of that little journey into the Gold Coast and into high rise.
Yeah, and when I started, and I'll just go back a step because I mean, if somebody's listening who's thinking, where do I start? I really started where I knew, and that was carpenter by trade. So I knew how to build, timber homes, timber townhouses, and I moved into supervision, construction management of townhouse projects. So my first development was a townhouse project, and it was in Carina. I grew up in Carindale, which is just down the road, so it was in my own backyard. So in the beginning, it was really just starting where I knew, which was my way of managing risk. And then, as you said, we identified an opportunity to go to the Gold Coast. And that was really after delivering in that inner east area for 5 years, and then seeing the challenges with town planning and sales start to appear, and just saying this isn't going to be sustainable to continue to operate here. And I remember going to a lunch maybe in 2017 where another developer was there, and he delivered a lot of apartment projects and had a big pipeline of projects to bring forward. And he said, we could see the writing was on the wall that the apartments market was going to die. And so we decided to sell all of our projects, and then sat in the office for a year, got consultants in and worked out, where do we go next? Do we go and do retail, or do we go and do fuel? Do we do industrial? And he said, I spent 12 months deciding what to do next. So that always sat in the back of my mind. So when I saw it getting challenging to deliver those infill projects in the inner east, I thought, I put my ego to the side, because it is easy to get caught up and think I have to keep doing more and more and more, and say, let's slow down, do less, do enough to keep the core team going, which was a couple of high-end homes, and then sit in the office and say, where is the opportunity? And so that was really timely for me that occurred in 2020, early 2020. As we touched on with COVID, we were at a point really when that hit that we had scaled back the business, so we had less exposure. But I really sat in the office and I went, where are other people delivering developments, companies that I respect and that are good operators? Where are they doing it? How are they doing it? And then reverse engineered those projects to say, what would they buy the land for? What would they be selling them for? And some assumptions. And then so we went full circle on that and really just thought, Brisbane was very challenging. Both of the two coasts, Sunshine and the Gold Coast, were appealing. The Gold Coast is a little bit closer to Brisbane, a little bit easier to access. It's less fragmented because you've got the coastal strip, which sort of, runs from Main Beach, Surfers Paradise into Broad Beach, all the way down to the border. It's easy to understand, whereas the Sunshine Coast was a bit more fragmented. So it was really about understanding, where there was potential opportunity, understanding what we were good at, and then looking for that product, that location to deliver that, which ultimately was the Gold Coast.
So based on everything you said, what type of workers do you hire? What do you look for? Obviously, with all these multi-million-dollar high rises you're putting up, and the high success of your company, what type of staff do you look for, in terms of motivation, and how do they grow throughout your ranks into probably to the position that you're in?
Yep. And, I wonder sometimes, am I the best person at hiring people, because we run a pretty small team, we're sort of just sit under 20 people. Through most of my journey, I've had people who have started off with not loads of experience. I haven't gone on and employed people that are, seasoned veterans or general managers or CEOs, or it's really been, people that I know and trust, and then trying to grow them while we grow and training them. And so it's a good question, because I do wonder, do we get to a point when we have to change the way that we approach recruitment? Yep. Because there has been a bit of, nepotism and friends and family, or, I've got one of my guys that works for me started when he was 17 as a carpenter. He's been working for me for 12 years, so prior to starting Sierra. And now he's like my construction manager, right hand. I trust him to do anything, but he's only 29, just about to turn 30 years of age. So it's a big responsibility for a young guy, but it's really about the loyalty. Like I know he can go to a job site and he'll tell me what's happening and what's right. So, and then I've got, my development manager, which is a key role in a business like mine. Used to work for me. He came on a job site as a labour hire carpenter. And then he went on a journey to play some professional sport, came back, was looking for an opportunity. And I thought, as a guy he's intelligent. I think if you're a good tradesperson, you can be organised and all those sort of things. He's got this, he can apply those same skills to a different discipline. And so he's really been trained up. So we are a bit of a, like young team who have learnt on the job. And it's about, the personality and the quality more than the skills. And I guess I like to think that, leading from the front, I can sort of run the team like that.
Yeah, just quickly, because I know that with the team that you employed for one of those high-rise projects, that just talk us through, I know that you went with a pre-existing team that was working for another company and they'd run out of work, and you're able to sort of get the whole team and the benefits associated with bringing a whole team across.
Yeah, it's a good point. And it's sort of the core team I talk about is a little bit different to this scenario where we weren't originally going to build the 113 apartments on Chevron Island. I was going to get one of tier 2 builders in Queensland to do it, but there's been so much, fallout in that industry. There really is a limited amount of contractors to deliver the project. So I thought if I'm going to do it myself and bring it in-house, I need to have a team who have got a good track record and experience delivering that. And so just through my network, I think that that's probably a good place for everybody to start, is rather than a recruiter, is to, through your network, if you've got good people around you. I sort of tried to find, a recommendation for a project manager and a site manager, and somebody put me on to a group of guys who had worked together. The builder that they had worked for had gone into liquidation, and they sort of all had to go their separate ways. So they all ended up at all different building firms, and they wanted to work together again. So I was able to talk to them as a group and say, if we create this opportunity to bring you all back together, would you deliver this project for us? So they are actually, contrary to what I said before, they are very experienced, steady hands. That was super important for that.
In terms of ensuring business growth and sort of like mapping it so that, you didn't take on too many projects or not enough, or cash flow became a problem, or for heaven's sake, when COVID hit, how did you manage all these situations in terms of, for anyone listening out there, ensuring that you just keep the funnel flowing? How did you ensure you did that?
Yeah, and that is incredibly difficult in development because cash flow is terrible, because, a project can go for 5 years and you don't make any money until it's over. And so that has been a big thing from day one. And I would think that, probably part of my skill set is being able to understand those numbers and manage that and do some projections around what the pipeline looks like and managing that, and not taking too much risk. Like you said, there's always the bright lights and the opportunity, but it's just understanding, that it takes a long time to get to where you want to go. And you just need to be able to take on the amount of work that you can do a very good job of and continue to deliver that. So I know that doesn't necessarily answer the question, but during, the 10 years, I ran all of the, up until probably 3 years ago, so the first 6 years, 7 years, I did all of the finances myself. So all of the cash flow projections, paying all of the invoice, managing all of that side, because of how tight we had to be to make sure that we had enough capital to deliver those projects and manage cash flow. So being very hands-on with every part of it, that's probably the best advice I can give, is that, it's exciting to be growing and then, bringing on people and delegating stuff, but I just think you just can't let go of in the initial phase when it's so delicate. You have to be on top of everything and across it all and dot your I's and cross your T's. For me anyway.
Yeah. Well said.
Yeah,
awesome.
Would you do, sorry mate, would you do anything different if you had your time over again?
If I did some things different, I might have, be further along my journey, or some things might have been easier, but I probably wouldn't change anything. And there's been some shitty times in there as well. I probably wouldn't change anything because I am who I am, and we are where we are. Like, and I'm happy and proud about that. But I would say that if I was guiding somebody else on that journey and said, there's some ways you could maybe shortcut this, then I would be happy to pass those along. So, but I guess like sometimes going the long way, you learn a little bit more and you get a better appreciation for it. And I think if somebody from the outside looked at our journey, they'd be like, oh, well, it's like, pretty rapid rise to where we are. It hasn't felt like that. And then, you sort of go through periods where you feel like you're treading water, and then things take off. So I wouldn't change it. I could help people, but too late for me.
Has there been any aspect of your journey that you think you could share with us that might inspire or encourage somebody out there that might just have a wages job to go out there and have a crack?
Yeah, it's just really hard too, because I don't know what. Like, it's like people talk about imposter syndrome or whatever it is. Like, I don't really know what I've brought to the table that's brought success, other than just like being passionate, putting in the hard work, like persevering when it was tough, doing the right thing. Like, probably the biggest thing is like doing the right thing has returned, 10x what you ever think. Like, so there's a return on investment of just being a good person and doing the right thing that you don't know until it shows its face. You know what I mean? Like building good relationships.
That is a super, super good point. I think that it's so difficult because it's not instant gratification. You just do the right thing, you do the right thing, you do the right thing. And I know that your reputation has been built throughout the industry for exactly that. And that pays dividends in the long run.
Mate, is there? I know we're talking about some really good things, but I've got to ask a negative question, right? So, what's been probably one of the, I wouldn't say dumbest, but what's been one of the silliest decisions that you think you've made, and it's just caused you to either freak out, or how did you overcome that?
Probably just getting into business with the wrong people. Just business partnerships I think like dumb, because again, like, would I change that? No, because I learnt so much from making that mistake. But, and even my dad, who I think's an amazing reader of character and can pick someone, as soon as they walk into a room, when you're starting out, you don't have that ability because you haven't been burnt. So maybe, it is part of the journey that it has to happen to you, so that you have to learn that, because you can't always have someone watching over you. But it's just getting into business with people who you're not aligned with. And if anybody asks me, I'm thinking about going into business and me and my mate are doing it, it's like, where do you want to be? What's the business look like? What do you bring to the table? Are you complementing each other? Probably ego. So, if you're getting into this because you want to have a heap of money and go and party and do whatever, which is, some people want to do that. You can't have another business partner who's like, I want to be ultra conservative and it's all about family. And so I just think like getting into business with the wrong people where your values aren't aligned.
Yep. I was going to say that has been the most important lesson I've learned, has been shared value in people that you go into business with as number one.
100%. And then in terms of that, just to dig a little deeper, what's been the, you reckon, the dumbest decision you've ever made in business where you look back and go, what was I thinking? We've all had those moments.
Yeah. Mate, I haven't had too many, to be honest. I'm not just talking on here, make me feel bad. I'm on here to say I haven't made dumb decisions. Mine might be around the corner, mate. Maybe I've made it and I just don't know yet. But
what did you ever have, if you didn't have that, did you ever have a close call where you really considered it, you went left, could have gone right?
Yeah, I just feel like we've been like, not in a reckless way, but we've just been running close to the flame like the whole journey. And so probably just like we talk about taking on risk that I don't think there was I genuinely don't think that there's been decisions where I'm like, I just absolutely should not have done that. And I'm not saying that's because I'm the world's greatest businessman. I put a lot of thought into stuff and I've probably avoided anything catastrophic. But it's been the fine line between how much risk to take on. And there's certainly been like times where it's like, fuck, I don't know if I should have bought this block, or how am I going to settle this, or timing, like just pushing it really hard where it's like maybe it was one step away from being too hard. So it's probably more, but that's the good and the bad, right? Like if you don't push it that hard, then you don't maybe grow
So yeah,
it.
maybe the answer to that is then your answer would be there's always bad with the good. But like if you're going to do something really, really impactful,
Yeah.
you've got to be willing to really analyse it and look deep.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd also add that and I know that you analyse very carefully, that's one of the reasons, because I know that any dumb decisions that I would have made has been based on not putting the level of thought into it. And I think when you do your due diligence, you're talking to the right people, you can avoid making some of those big dumb decisions. But some people I know that have made a dumb decision, it's been just straight off the bat. There's been no thought that's gone into it. It just went bang, and then you can sit back and have regret. Speaking of regret, what do you think the lowest point's been in your career during Sierra that was the toughest for you?
There's been like financially difficult times when, cash flow's been really hard. I had a project, and like, it's not a dumb decision, but I had a project that we bought that we were going to deliver apartments on. I got the approval. I sold 5 of the 16 apartments. Then the apartment oversupply, which, it was just because I didn't know what to look for at the time. Like I didn't really understand the supply and demand metrics. And so I then had to cancel the contracts of the people who had bought those, and we'd communicated with them a lot along the way because we couldn't deliver that project. And then I had to deliver some townhouses on it to ultimately, lose a lot of money delivering that project, but to lose less than we would have if we hadn't delivered the townhouses. And so I just think that mate, I lost my train of thought when I was answering you. Just what's the point you wanted to get across?
The lowest point.
Oh, yeah, yeah. So that probably, like again, so at the back end of that was pretty low because it was super tight at the back end. Settling, you finish a project, you get planned ceilings, the council have to sign off on it. You go to the titles office. There's a period there where you finished, all the trades are done, you've spent the money, and then you're waiting to get paid. And so there was just a period there that was really tough on cash flow where, had to ring up subbies and ring up suppliers and say, it's going to be a little bit longer to get paid on some of this stuff. And that was obviously that's not a great feeling. But, everyone got paid. We got great relationships with all those people. But it was just that feeling of someone does a job, you just want to sort them out and move on. So probably the back end of that was the period that felt the worst, waking up, worrying about money.
Probably another good lesson in there, though, I think, that even though you were tight for money, you had an open and honest outlook with your subcontractors and maintain at the end of it with those relationships. So when you are in a bit of a hole, that still maintain communication is probably another good lesson out there.
Yeah, and I think that people muck that up all the time, to be
do.
honest. And I can see why, pride and all that gets in. No one wants to ring up and say, hey, I'm struggling or whatever it is. And that probably translates beyond just business, right? Like we talk about it in mental health. Like people struggle to say, hey, I'm doing it a bit tough or I've got something going on. But yeah, just communicating with people. I think genuinely, if you are a good operator, you do the right thing, and then you ring up someone and say, hey, I'm doing it a bit tough. This is the game plan, X, Y, Z. On this day, I'll give you a call. If it hasn't happened, then I'll give you, people appreciate that. And I think that applies to anything that you do.
Yep. One last one I want to touch on. I know that recently you've jumped into fitness a little bit, and just talk us through, has that had much of an impact for you? I know.
I told you just noticed.
But how's that had an effect on your business and on your overarching life? Just getting some priority around your health and your fitness.
Yeah. So it is something that I just neglected for a long time. Like I like to consider myself, family orientated, and then so family and business has just been the priority. And I got a couple of young kids, and so I really just let my fitness. Like I just survived on, kept in reasonable shape, just because I'm always racing around at 1,000,000 miles an hour. Would constantly skip meals, so I never really struggled too much. But I got to the point where I was like, the business is going well, family life's going well. I'm missing one thing here, which is looking after myself a bit. And I've got a hip injury that I ignored forever. And so I thought, now's the time to dedicate myself to getting my hip injury better, getting some fitness. So that's like been a 12-month journey. It is, I find it a grind because with work being such a mental battle, I would then find myself going to exercise, and I get to that, and I'm pretty competitive, so I'd get to that point where it's like, fuck, you want to quit, and I don't want to be here, I don't want to do this, and it's like mentally fatiguing getting in that battle. Yeah. And I'm like, I'm battling in every other area of my life, and now I'm putting myself through this other battle. Like that was the part that I really struggle with, and like still, I wake up Monday morning and I just set up a good gym at home. I have a exercise phys who comes on a Friday to my house, and so I'm doing Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then a little bit on Saturday. I wake up Monday morning, I'm like, I do not want to do this. I try and put it off, and then I do it and I feel a bit better about myself. But people who tell me, oh, you exercise and you'll feel 10 times better and you'll be better at work, like, mate, I don't feel it yet or see it yet, to be honest. I just think like I don't want to be getting up to do it. But I am building momentum, and so I feel like it's like everything. It's just I know that if I just stick at it, and little by little, I want to get to the point where it's no longer a battle, goal one, and then I start to enjoy it, and then I feel like it'll get a bit more downhill. So I hope that answers it. It's not, mate, it's not rainbows and Skittles yet. It's pretty average still.
I love your honesty and your authenticity.
Mate, when you look back on, when you sit around having a beer on a Saturday afternoon, like, what's your greatest achievement so far that you're most proud of? And then what does the end look like for you? Like, when do you get to the end point, sit back and reflect on the wonderful work that you've been able to create for your family?
Yeah. Mate, I'm very proud about the work that we're doing and the team that we have around us doing it. Mate, genuinely, like, it's not just to beat it up, but like my proudest thing is my family, to be honest. Like my wife and my kids, and having that, and Magnus knows, alongside the business, like, makes me super proud, because the business now is at a point like it's giving us opportunities as a family to do lots of good things together. Awesome. Mate, because I just like I genuinely, and Magnus has like been to my house, I built a new house. Like, it's just about like coming home. The house is set up for the family to do all the things that we like doing. I try to make it so I don't have to see my neighbours or talk to anybody. I just like to come home from work and be there and not have to bother about anybody else. So that's why, you sort of, when you get that feeling, that you're on the right path, I think. Like, you feel like I'm not missing anything there. And then in terms of long term, like, I don't know what that looks like. And if you'd asked me 4 years ago, where do you want to be in 3 years or 5 years or 10 years? Like, I'm just like, if I just keep my head down, keep doing a good job, make sure I'm enjoying it, I'm just going to end up where we end up. Yep. And I don't see myself retiring, if I'm honest. And it's probably a sign of like that I'm on the right path and I'm doing what I like to do. Nice. My wife's filthy about that. Like, filthy. But hopefully that answers it.
I think it's a fair legacy as well. Like, that's the one beautiful thing in relation to property development, that what you have built, what you have developed, there's families that are going to be enjoying that for generations 100%. To come. So
yeah. And with the Olympics just around the corner, what's for anyone who's an entrepreneur, or maybe they just want to try to be or have a go in this space, what would be a piece of advice you'd pass on to them?
Yeah, I think when you think about opportunity, I don't think it matters the market. I don't think it matters, if somewhere's growing. I think there's just always opportunity, because, for me, I used to deliver those projects in the infill areas, and then we moved out of that because we've grown and we're delivering somewhere else. Like, that creates an opening for somebody else. And I think that we talked about, moving to the Gold Coast, that if you are in an environment where, you really do the research and there is no opportunity, but you want it bad enough, like, you just have to move. And so my story about that, and to go a little bit off topic, is when I wanted to become a full-time from a carpenter to a site supervisor, everywhere in Brisbane I applied, you had to have 5 years experience. So it's like the chicken and the egg. How do you become a supervisor and get 5 years experience if you need 5 years to get the job, right? And so then I took an opportunity in Mackay where the mining had boomed. All the people who had worked in construction had moved out and working in the mines, getting paid more, so they were scrambling for construction workers. So I went up there and got a full-time supervisor's gig so that I could learn the ropes. And so it was about like, you know, you might have to put yourself out of your comfort zone. So we relocated to Mackay and did that for a couple of years. And so I'm like, regardless of the Olympics, I think that if you really want to do it, there is opportunity everywhere. And it's just about getting serious about it, creating a bit of a plan, you know, learning as much as you can, finding some people that you can ask questions of and mentor you, because people are genuinely pretty happy to give advice, and then just get stuck in and work hard.
What about
Great answer, mate. Great answer.
What about the property and construction industry leading up to the 2032 Olympics? We've already seen a lot of heat come onto the market. Where do you see it?
I think the actual like property prices in Southeast Queensland, like, I don't see that winding back, to be honest. I think if anything, I think it's going to continue to, you know, get more expensive to live here just because of the supply and demand equation. You know, we saw interstate migration out of Victoria moving to Queensland off the back of affordability. But now we're seeing it off the back of lifestyle because, you know, Southeast Queensland, Brisbane, the Gold Coast, like, it's a pretty amazing place to live. So I don't think that's going to slow down. We've got some headwinds with our ability to be able to deliver projects, and, you know, there simply isn't enough contractors, there isn't enough skilled workers to deliver the amount of infrastructure as well as the residential projects that we have, which is a major problem that there's probably no quick fix for. So I think that you're going to see, you know, this tension between public sector work and private sector work play out for the next 10 years while we're trying to build stuff for the Olympics and the rest of the infrastructure. And then with that means that supply of housing is going to be constrained. Like, I really don't see that changing, not in the next decade, unless there's some sort of left field strategy around it. So I'm not sure if that's good news for people who want to get into the housing market, but that would be my take.
Mate, much appreciate that insight. Well, that's the end of the standard questions. I'll just check in with the boys if before we get into the
good. Let's go to Magnus.
There we go.
the quick fire questions.
Can I skip some if it's too hard?
Mate, yeah, just pass if you need to. Righto. What's the first thing you do when you wake up?
I have a shower because that's where I do my best thinking.
Best habit or ritual you've developed into your daily routine?
To-do list.
Describe your personal philosophy in one sentence.
Just do a good job.
What do you dream about?
Business-wise.
Good answer.
Mate, just doing what we're doing.
Who's had the biggest influence in your career?
It's really tough, loads of people, but I'll just say my old man.
The most rewarding part of being a founder?
Yeah, like, is it narcissistical to say, like, to do what I want to do, you know, do things my way? But, yeah, mate, just doing things the way I want to do them.
What motivates you?
Mate, challenges.
What scares you?
How short life is.
Favourite movie?
Days of Thunder. Because, and I will expand, is because from a business context, I feel like that's my life. And if anyone's watched it and he says, hold it flat, go to the outside, I feel like that's my life. There's the wreck in front of you all the time.
Yeah.
And you just got to keep it flat and keep going.
The smartest person you've ever met?
I have no idea. Because it's all depends in the context. Yeah, I don't know.
The most valuable advice you've ever received?
Don't worry about what other people think.
Greatest lesson you've ever learned?
Got to just go back. You should worry about what other people think if you're doing the wrong thing. But if you're doing the right thing, don't worry.
All right, mate.
Austin, greatest lesson?
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know.
All right. Last question. A must-have quality to be a successful entrepreneur, founder?
Perseverance.
Mate, well said. Mate, thanks so much for your time and your insights, mate. Very, very valuable. I'm sure the listeners would have got a lot out of that. I know I did. Thank you, boys.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Awesome,
Thank you, mate, for sharing your story.
Appreciate you having me.